everyone, we're going to verify this trig identity by multiplying by the conjugate and then simplifying. So this one is, you have to be very careful and keep all the steps together. So basically what they could have done is just written this like this to begin with. Put parentheses here, and then we're going to multiply the denominator by the conjugate. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 1 plus cosine of theta plus sine of theta. Right? Divide it by 1 plus cosine of theta minus sine of theta. So to simplify this, we're going to multiply the denominator by the conjugate. And the conjugate being, we have this part, an a minus b, where my a is 1 plus cosine and my b is sine. So we want to make it a plus. So we're going to do 1 plus cosine of theta plus sine of theta. We're multiplying. And if you multiply the denominator by the conjugate, you have to multiply the numerator by the same thing because we're just multiplying by 1. So this is 1 plus cosine of theta plus sine of theta. Now let's take care of the denominator. The denominator is just going to be a squared minus b squared. So it's going to be 1 plus cosine theta squared minus sine squared. So we're going to expand this using our perfect square trinomial. So that's going to be 1 plus 2 cosine of theta plus cosine squared of theta. So that's that minus b squared. So that's minus sine squared of theta. Numerator is a little harder. So we have to do this for the numerator. This is your a plus b times a plus b. So we're going to go ahead and square my a, which we already have done that. So that, just copy that down. 1 plus 2 cosine theta plus cosine squared of theta. Then we need plus 2ab. So that's going to be plus 2. I'll go ahead and put sine first. So I'm doing 2ba. And then 1 plus cosine of theta. And then we have square the sine. So plus b squared. So plus sine squared. Now in the next slide, I'm going to do a little trick to simplify this. So this is where your little, usually when you're doing proofs, you have this little trick in the middle. What I'm going to do is rewrite sine squared of theta as 1 minus cosine squared of theta. So I'm going to substitute this for these two terms. All right, so let me do that. We're going to get 1, I'm just copying now, 1 plus 2 cosine of theta plus cosine squared of theta plus 2 sine of theta times 1 plus cosine of theta. And then I had plus sine, now it's going to be 1 minus cosine squared of theta. All right, and now I'll do the same thing for the denominator. We're going to copy it down. So that part we already had. Then we had minus sine squared. So now we're going to write 1 minus cosine squared of theta. I'm going to just squeeze this in. This would end up being minus 1 plus cosine squared of theta if you distribute that negative. All right. Now that we have that, let's simplify. We have 1 plus 1 is 2. And then these two cancel, which is what we wanted. So now we have 2 plus 2 cosine of theta plus this part. 2 sine of theta, 1 plus cosine of theta. And let's look in the denominator. The denominator, the 1's cancel, and we have 2 of these. So we have 2 cosine of theta plus 2 cosine squared of theta. Before I move on to the next slide, what I'm going to do is factor out a 2 here, and this will give you 1 plus cosine of theta. In the denominator, I'm going to also factor out a 2 cosine. So if I factor out a 2 cosine in the denominator, I'm going to get 1 plus cosine theta. So what we'll have is 2 1 plus cosines of thetas. Now when I do that, what I'm going to have is, let's see. Yeah, let me do that first. So that's what I'm going to do, and write that down, and then we're almost done. So we have, I'm factoring out a 2, 2 times 1 plus cosine of theta plus 2 sine of theta times 1 plus cosine of theta. And then in the denominator we had 2, we factored out a 2 cosine of theta, 1 plus cosine of theta. The next thing we want to do is factor by grouping. So I have these two are the same, so I can write this as 2 plus 2 sine of theta times 1 plus cosine of theta. And then we still have our denominator. 2 cosine of theta times 1 plus cosine of theta. Now we can go ahead and, since it's all multiplying now, we can get rid of this because that divides out to 1. Now I'm going to factor out a 2 here, and I get 2, and that's going to be 1 plus sine of theta divided by 2 times cosine of theta. So now our 2's cancel out. Next step is I'm going to put this cosine of theta under each of these pieces. So we have 1 divided by cosine of theta plus sine divided by cosine of theta. All right, and then that's going to give you 1 divided by cosine of theta is secant theta plus sine divided by cosine is tan of theta. So for this one, there was a little trick about changing your sine squares to 1 minus cosine squares. So that's the little hint there. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.